Hey, how's it going, guys? Jack and Maddie with the Toasty Bros, and you guys really liked the RX 6600 mobile video we did, and it worked out really well. So now we got an RTX card, RTX 3060 mobile. Is it any good?
Yeah, we bought this thing from Aliexpress for around $200. At the time recording this video, it's like $180, $190 from a wide range of different sellers, but this one is a little bit more weird than the 6600M. It's not as straightforward, but you're getting RTX. Is it worth all the trade-offs? We're about to find out, but first, a word from today's sponsor. Today's video is brought to you by GVG Mall, the online marketplace to gain access to some really awesome discounted game keys, and more specifically, Windows 10 licenses.
With Windows 10, it is so easy just to go onto the website using the link in the description down below, and then go to the Windows 10, click Buy It Now, add code TB20, then go to the checkout, put in your payment info, and then boom, you will get within a few seconds or a few minutes an activation code that you will go into Windows 10, put in the activation code, and it is fully legit. It will work out of the box, and you will have a fully activated Windows 10 license.
We use GVG Mall for all the PCs we built here at the Toasty Bros, and so should you. So definitely check the link in the description down below and use code TB20 to save money on checkouts.
So a couple quick things to note about this RTX card is with the 6600 that we used, we were able just to go to AMD's website, install the drivers, bang, we're good to go. Now these are a little bit different because they're basically 3060 mobile cards that Nvidia didn't really want out there. They were more meant for mining. So now that these manufacturers from Aliexpress and what have you have put these into dedicated cards, they're not really supporting the drivers. So you actually have to get the drivers from the sellers of these cards, and they do look pretty sketchy.
Yeah, during the benchmark run, we'll go ahead and show you how you install those drivers, but I had to reach out to the seller to be like, hey, where's the driver? Because every single time we try to install the driver, it doesn't work properly, but we'll talk more about that during the benchmarks. But we'll go ahead and run over some of the key tech specs of this graphics card. So this GPU, as we mentioned, is an RTX 3060 laptop GPU. It is an 8nm GPU, and its release date is supposed to be January 12, 2021, according to this GPU-Z reading that I found from the Aliexpress listing. We are rocking only 6 gigs of RAM, GDDR6 RAM, mainly because, well, it's a laptop GPU. The laptop 3060 did not get the full 12 gigs that some of the desktop 3060s get, so you're only getting 6 there, so that is something to keep in mind during the benchmarks. And this model right here from Jaisu comes with 2-fan design. We have DisplayPort, HDMI, DisplayPort, HDMI, so you got 2 of each. You got those for video out, and it is a very cheap feeling card. It only uses an 8-pin for power, so it's pretty power efficient. That's kind of the benefit of these mobile cards, is the fact that they use mobile GPUs for laptops, so they're not going to be as power hungry as a full desktop one. So this cooler should be perfectly fine for cooling it. But you know what? We're really not going to know that until we install the drivers and actually try to play some games, and we're going to go ahead and do that.
And then for the actual test bench, we use the same one every time. We have the Ryzen 5 5600G 6-core 12-thread cooled by a 240mm deep cool liquid cooler. We also have an Asus TUF B550 gaming. We have 16 gigs of PNY Accelerate 3600 MHz dual channel RAM, a 1TB Team Group NVMe SSD, an XPG 650-watt power supply, all inside of a very beautiful deep cool case.
So yeah, what we're gonna go ahead and do is take this graphics card, slap it in our test bench, and run it through a suite of games and show you guys exactly what kind of performance you'd expect if you decide to buy this card. All right, guys, now that we have this RTX 3060 mobile card on our test bench, let's talk about some of the problems we encountered. Now, we really didn't think a card from AliExpress that is using an RTX mobile card would be just working perfectly, right? Well, it didn't work perfectly at all. When I first installed the card, I really have done no research on this card. I pretty much picked it up from AliExpress and was like, hey, let's get going with this thing. But once I installed the card, I could not get drivers to install at all. No matter how you installed them, it just said the card wasn't supported. So I was a little bit worried. But I did do some research and saw our friend David actually did a video on this card, and his video showed that you had to get a driver from the seller. So I reached out to the seller and actually reached out to David, which shout out to you, David, you did send it over, but the seller did also send over the driver, and we installed it, and it's this very sketchy driver that comes with a text document that basically says install one driver here, restart, install the second driver here, and you're good to go. Kind of a deal breaker in my opinion for wanting to actually buy this card for long-term use, considering you'd have to reach out to the seller to get a brand new driver once drivers are updated, and the fact that they're probably doing some weird modification behind the scenes, I don't expect that to work out long term. So yeah, the performance is there though. We're going to go ahead and dive into those test numbers, but again, I would just approach this with some caution, just purely based on the driver that I had to install here. First up, in Forza Horizon 5 on high settings using the built-in benchmark, we've got an average of 106 FPS. So far so good. It's looking like an RTX 3060, and the fact that you could buy this thing for $200 or less is actually a really good value. You're going to get the NVIDIA code, you're going to get pretty much everything the RTX 3060 can, well, minus 6 gigs of VRAM. It only has 6 gigs of VRAM, which might hold you back a little bit, and you're able to get it in a, well, cheaper way basically, and save yourself a good amount of money compared to the standard model. Now next up is Cyberpunk on ultra settings at 1080p. We end up getting an average of 97 FPS, a minimum of 33, and a max of 141. Yeah, the performance is pretty dang good. I mean, this is the first time with this test bench that we have with the Ryzen 5 5600G that I was honestly thinking the 5600G was the bottleneck in a lot of these tests. We definitely could have gotten some more performance with a better CPU, so that's something to keep in mind. And I really do like these mobile chips because of how efficient they are. This thing draws less power and therefore is not very heat producing. So it does run very cool compared to any other card on the market, really. Just like that RX 6600M we got, it was maintaining really low temperatures and outputting some really awesome performance. Next up is another AAA title, albeit it is a little bit older, Shadow of the Tomb Raider, 1080p high settings. We got an average of 121 FPS. Once again, this is a pretty good showing from this card. I think if you were to build a PC with this graphics card right now, I'd probably pair it with something like a 12600KF, or if you want to go 13 gen, 13600KF, or you want to go Ryzen, I mean, you could go 7000 series, but we all know the value isn't really there right now. So something like a 5800X 3D with this card would be absolutely awesome. I really do think that this card, if you are okay with the drivers or can find a workaround to get drivers to work, which there have been some things that you could do, but I have not been able to actually do, customizing some of the INL files to be actually able to install the drivers. If you can get that to work, then you might actually have a really good value card on your hands, especially if you're in another country where 3060s are probably really expensive. But yeah, you could pair this thing with some really high-end CPUs and have a really awesome gaming PC. Next up is everyone's favorite game right now, Warzone 2.0 on the balance preset 1080p. We got 90 to 100 FPS. I would imagine in all the game tests that we did, you could stretch into 1440p a little bit. The 6 gigs of VRAM would hold you back slightly, but I still think you'd be incredibly happy with the performance you're getting. As you can see, running around here in Warzone, we're still maintaining 90 to 100, a few dips below 100, but it would be a good high refresh rate experience on lower settings. And again, I think the Ryzen 5 5600G I'm using in the system is currently the bottleneck, so there's definitely some more headroom there. And next up is Apex Legends, a less demanding AAA title that is more of an esports title, but 200 plus FPS on average, some dips into 170 and 180 FPS, but in reality, it's an awesome high refresh rate experience. So the recap of this card is, it's very strange. I wouldn't really recommend going out of your way to get this, to use this very sketchy driver to hopefully hope that it works long term. Who knows? Warzone was already giving me errors saying my driver was incredibly old and I needed to ignore it to get into the game. So any sort of major change to the game mechanics might just make this driver and card totally unusable. So you do want to approach this with some caution. And also, it does show that Nvidia is purposely blocking these cards. It has to be something to do with this card being a former mining card that was pretty popular overseas. It was designed specifically for mining, and now Nvidia is not allowing these drivers to be installed. Therefore, we're having to do some weird workarounds to make it work. It's kind of weird that they're doing that, but I kind of understand. I really am not happy about it because it'd be really cool to take hardware that would just end up in landfills and actually make it usable for the consumer. But of course, they don't want people selling them because they rather make their own money on their normal desktop cards. So let me know if you picked one of these bad boys up and if you were able to get it to work properly. But yeah, it's a very strange card. The performance is really awesome at its current state, but because of the driver issue, I really can't recommend you go out of your way to buy it. So now we finished the benchmarking section of today's video. How to bring Jackson back in here to wrap this video up real quick.
Alright guys, we just got done benchmarking our 3060M and it actually performed a little better than we thought it would. Getting those drivers was a little weird because without them we really can't play anything, but once we got them, hey, it was all good. A little weird installing them. Some of the games say they're outdated, but then they work just fine. Now in terms of the performance, we're looking in between a 3050 and 3060, but a lot closer to the 3060, so you gotta keep in mind 3060 12 gigs are still going for like 300 plus, so this thing being like 180 is definitely pretty appealing.
Yeah, at $180 you do have a lot of things you have to deal with. That driver, there are some things out there where some people have suggested modifying like the INL files to where you could get drivers to install. I wasn't able to make that work. I tried my best with that. I really just stuck with that driver, and yeah, it does work, but you do get those warning signs. So at some point in the future, some updates may make this card not as worth it anymore, and you really don't have to rely on a random seller from Aliexpress to give you the latest drivers every single time. So it's one of those things where if you are somebody who wants to tinker with with it and feel like you can get the drivers working, then definitely check the link down below and go to Aliexpress and pick one up. But it's not really the card I would recommend for somebody who's wanting a cheap alternative to the desktop normal card. It doesn't want to have to deal with any major issues. I'd probably just lean towards that RX 6600M if you're in another country.
So as always, we hope you guys enjoyed today's video. If you did, check out our other two YouTube channels and also our twitch.tv/toastybros, and do not forget to like, comment, and subscribe.
And we'll see you guys in the next one. Bye-bye.
Peace out. So now that we're done with this GPU, we're gonna put our test bench back on the shelf, but then the GPU, we gotta use it in something. So we're probably gonna plan a really budget PC Bros build that we will pass down to you guys. So check out PCBros.tech.
PCBros.tech, where you can buy gaming PCs, gaming laptops, and so much more. And this video is going live in December, so Santa 5, guys. 5% off your next purchase, only through the month of December, so hurry up and buy a PC today. See you guys later. Goodbye.
Peace out.